Good morning, everybody. I want to, believe it or not, I want to try to do a quick video here as a follow-up or another piece of the privilege conversation that has been going on. And this follow-up comes upon the heels of a parent leadership group that I facilitated last night, which, by the way, was awesome. We had some great experiences, conversations. The room was full, pretty much standing room only. Um, and it was great to see, the coming together of both new people and people who have been coming for years, and just see people continually being drawn to what I call these grown-up conversations, these mature conversations, these an opportunity to stand in the presence of great wisdom, not of mine, but of the information that I provide in the group, and how people just end up feeling, revitalized intellectually, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's just such an awesome experience. And so thank you for all those that attend. And what I did, of course, is that I invite everybody um, to text me, email me, whatever, with questions about the experience that they had that evening, and so I can continue to unpack that. And last night we dove into the idea, deeper into the idea of privilege, and as as seen upon the framework of entitlement and indulgence. And one of the things that we talked about, I guess a couple of key things. We talked about the presence of trauma in our society. Right now there's, like privilege, trauma is also a hot topic. And you've heard about it referred to as ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, primarily. And if you Google that, if you YouTube that, you'll see all kind of the latest research on the impact of adverse childhood experiences, what we call traumatic experiences, on brain development, on emotional development, on cognitive development, on social development, basically just how it really can be disruptive in a person's life, and can, I guess you could say, leave a mark for a person's entire life. And it reminds me of another topic, which is what people call oftentimes me time. And people wanting time for themselves. And one of the things we discussed last night was that when people are traumatized by the very nature of being hurt, we want to start being self-obsessed. We want to start focusing on ourselves. But according to attachment theory, now we brought in this piece, the attachment research about human beings basically is saying that we are absolutely wired for connection, and real authentic connection with other human beings. That's why we're seeing all this research that is showing that when people spend too much time on social media and other technology, they may be hoodwinked in thinking that they're connecting with other people, but actually statistically it's showing that the more times people spend with social media, on cell phones, etc., that there's higher preponderances of feelings of loneliness and despair, anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. And so people refer to that body of knowledge as a way of kind of reinforcing this idea that we are absolutely wired to connect with one another, which plays well into the attachment theory. And attachment theory basically says that when we're little, we get a sense of our self-esteem, our self-worth, etc., by how our caregivers treat us. And so if we have what we might call, ample supply of care and nurturing, and we're adored, and we're cuddled, and all these things, then it meets our needs. And when our needs are met, right, then we grow up as healthy individuals. So the problem with that we run into as human beings is that we already know this, is that the world isn't perfect, and the human beings in it aren't perfect either, and that human beings either don't meet our needs or meet them partially. Now, when you think of that, and you also think of the nature of who we are, and this is something that we really had to drive home last night for a purpose. But people have to understand that the nature of who we are is infantile. We all start out as infants. And the nature of being infantile is narcissistic, egocentric, and grandiose. Now, I've explained this extensively in other videos, but if that is the nature of who we are, then of course, anytime our needs aren't met, it's going to feel traumatic. And it's going to cause us, by nature, to be self-focused. Now, when somebody becomes self-focused and they're unable to be present with another human being, especially a child or an infant, what happens is that person also feels traumatized. You could say the whole problem is a result of self-obsession, but it's a natural occurrence in the psyche when we feel hurt. And please note, I'm saying natural. It's an animal instinct. It's a natural animal instinct to look after ourselves when we feel the stress, when we feel hurt. But also the consequences of being self-focused is that we can't be present for other people. And when we can't be present for other people, that traumatizes them. You see? So what I did last night is that I set up an experiment, if you will, an exercise. I split my group, the big group, into two small groups. And I provided each group member in both groups slips of paper, each one of them containing a virtue like faith, trust, love, compassion, etc. And I just had the group members circulate those virtues on the paper to each other. And the point of doing that was to say that here's what attachment theory says, is that as long as we meet each other's needs, everything goes well. As long as everybody, is there for everybody else, present and generous with their skills and abilities and talents, then it all works well. And the other group was doing the same thing, and they were circulating their virtues, their gifts, what we call their gifts, to one another. And then what I did is that I introduced into one group a little slip of paper that said pain, hurt and pain. And I gave it to one of the group members. I said, now you're hurt and in pain. So by the nature, very mechanics, the very nature, the very natural instincts that you will have is that you will contract. You will feel like you need help. You will feel like you need. And you will contract. Whatever gifts and abilities that you have, you will keep to yourself because you have to. You're becoming self-focused, self-infatuated. And so as the virtues continued to circulate, the person who was hurt began hoarding them, began keeping them all themselves. Why? Because of the narrative. The narrative says, I'm hurt and in need of XXX, right? Now, as this person hoarded those virtues, those gifts, it meant that the others were not having their needs met. And so when the others were not having their needs met, that resulted in them feeling traumatized. So it's like a contagious disease. As soon as I withhold my giftedness from you, according to this idea that we're so wired for connection and attachment, right? And when we don't have those people who are present and generous with their giftedness, there for us to give to us to meet our needs, it registers as a trauma. So just by the very nature of those mechanics, when I feel hurt, I'm going to contract, I'm going to hoard my gifts as well as everything else. The consequence is that other people get traumatized too. So now here we have an entire group, an entire family, an entire community, whatever it is, it could be an entire nation, all wounded. Now, you might say, well, but that would never happen. But if you look at the research that's coming out, and I don't even think we need to look at research, folks. We know since the beginning of time that people have been hurt and traumatized. The research we're seeing now on adverse childhood experiences and all sorts of other data is just kind of more clearly illustrating what we already know, is that everybody's wounded in some way. One could make a case that, well, that's kind of why we need to raise children within groups settings, because not everybody can provide, meet everybody's needs. It's one individual can't do that, so it requires a number of individuals to do that. But what we've got is a number of individuals who are still traumatized and kind of incapacitated or limited in their ability to be present. And what that generally can suggest is that trauma gets passed on from generation to generation. To illustrate that, I had this person who was hurt, you see, because no matter how much her group gave to her, to that participant, it was never enough. Because the more people get wounded, the more they start to hoard their own gifts. So nobody's giving anything now. Now, if that continued, if that group had to remain in and of itself, what would happen? Well, now we've got a bunch of people who feel highly entitled. This is where trauma inflames entitlement. We got a bunch of people who at their core are narcissistic, egocentric, and grandiose. Hence, they all want their own needs met. The world should revolve around them. So that group is going to start to fight among itself. There's going to be division. There's going to be war. There's going to be manipulation and control and intimidation, whatever. Everybody's going to be fighting to get their needs met. This is what it's like oftentimes in the families that I work with. And everybody's at odds with everybody else. And you might see factions occur. You might see mom aligned with daughter and, or what have you, or with son. And there's these alignments that start to take place, but they're just kind of, little factions launching war, waging war on the other factions in order to try to get their needs met. So what I'm talking about isn't rocket science, really. It happens every day and people do it every day. This is that phenomena of being wounded. But I had this individual go to the other group now. It's kind of like going, okay, look at that group. They're still passing their virtues around to each other. They're still meeting each other's needs. That's kind of the grass is greener on the other side syndrome. And so this individual goes over there. And then, because this individual is wounded, starts to hoard and take all the virtues, all the generosity, starts to take advantage of, starts to consume all the resources in that group. And what happens is the very thing that happened in the other group, is now people being traumatized there. So this is like how it becomes a contagious kind of disease. And I pointed out to the group, well, what are you going to do now? And the idea was sometimes necessity can be the mother of invention. An illustration I gave was, if you live in a big city or what have you, I'm sure you've all encountered it, where you're used to going a particular path, taking a particular road to get to a particular destination. And all of a sudden that road is closed or there's construction or whatever, and you get frustrated. Maybe you sit there and wait and until a new road is constructed or you get your turn to go through. Sometimes the authorities arrange an alternate route called a detour. So you're forced to take this different route. Sometimes there's no detour sign because maybe you just have to wait a half hour to get through. But what do? You figure out, oh, geez, well, you know what? I'm going to go this route and explore my own path. The point of that illustration is that sometimes in human relationships, and we could say all the time, really, is that other human beings will come up short for us. They won't be able to deliver. They won't be able to meet our needs. And so we have to look elsewhere. Now, certainly there are unhealthy roads we can go down. Addiction and indulgence of all kinds, right? Human beings are really good at just, going down dead-end roads. Roads that seem to offer promise, but actually at the end of it, all they offer is deadness. Absolutely stuck. That's why it's indulgent. Indulgences are seductions. So certain roads look good, and they promise freedom, but they don't. But still, the conditions are what they are. Right? The conditions are what they are. Now that being said, think about that exercise that I set up. 2 groups. Now both groups are wounded. Right? Both groups now are going to compete against each other. They're going to war with each other. They're going to control, manipulate, and intimidate each other. This is also an example of what's going on right now in society when you have special interest groups who are coming from a wounded victim position. They're going to fight each other. Both of them are going to feel marginalized, right? Both of them are going to look around and go, geez, this person, the grass is greener over here, right? These people, for whatever reason, seem to have privilege. These people seem to have freedom. These people seem to have, I kind of want to be over there. And I'm kind of pissed off about my, place in life right now. And so there's all this hurt and woundedness under this stuff, which is driving this desire to be special and this desire to control, manipulate, and intimidate. See, that's the shadow side of the victim role. When we've talked about this before in trauma vows or in the indulgence triangle, is that when people feel hurt, there's two main pieces that come off of that. There's feeling hurt and there's being angry about the hurt. What we call victim and revenge. Victim and revenge. Generally speaking, one could say that the victim position is a defensive position. In other words, I need to defend myself. Why? Because I got hurt before. The revenge position is an offensive position. It means I got hurt, so now I'm going to hurt you. So now I'm on the attack. But what we know is that a good defense can also be a good offense. And a good offense can also be a good defense. We see that in sports every day. It's really clear. This is not just a airy-fairy idea. This is a reality. What do you mean by that, John? Well, okay, what if you hurt somebody? Hurt their feelings, stepped on their toe, whatever. And they're hurt and mad at you. What would be one of the ways that they could ensure their own safety? They would get some distance from you, maybe, and they maybe wouldn't talk to you. They would ignore you. That would make sense, right? From a victim position. Why? Because I need to stay safe. And if I get close to you or if I say anything to you, it's thrown back in my face, whatever. So best thing to do is just distance myself from you emotionally and physically. Just underneath that, this is also an attack. The best way I can stick it to you is by ignoring you and pulling away from you physically. And this tactic is as old as time itself. And it really fits nicely into the attachment theory idea, because attachment theory says that we are so deeply desperate for connection that we would prefer connection even over food itself. That's how deeply human beings desire connection. That's how powerful connection is. So when we withdraw love and affection, it is a powerful attack. Let's be clear about that. So, saying that. So here's really where I wanted to go with this. So here the group is. They're stuck in this dilemma. As long as they look horizontally at each other to get their needs met, that's not going to happen. So by necessity, another road must be taken. We start to look elsewhere, up, down. We know we can't look sideways at other people, so it's mostly vertical. Up or down, what have you. We can't, Einstein saying, you can never solve a problem in the same paradigm in which it was created. So this problem is not solvable at the attachment level. I mean, believe me, I wish it could be. And if it can be, at best, it is an incredibly long-term effort. I've been to so many different workshops and presentations by psychologists, etc. I mean, they can describe the perfect conditions in which attachment can be repaired, but they have to be perfect. And they have to be consistent. Now, when I say perfect, it's not like a person has to be 100% like in this trauma-informed kind of attachment repair mode, but it has to be pretty darn consistent. It has to be more there than not. It has to be 60-70% of the time, and it has to be consistent over years and years and years. And people will talk about, well, because of neuronal pathways being developed, the older a person gets, the longer time it's going to take. So honestly, by the time parents are dealing with disrupted attachment in the teenage years of their kids, those neurons have already been pruned and those pathways have already been well established. And so to try to put your eggs in the basket of neuroplasticity, and that through all your rigorous attempts to repair attachment and grow new neurons in the neural pathway, it's going to take years. I always say to parents, well, at least time is on your side. If you don't make things any worse, things are probably going to get better, but it's going to take years. So here was the group's dilemma. And an individual brought to my attention, it's like, I feel so heartbroken because there are certain people that I've been looking to in my family and extended family to really provide me with recognition, to really see me for who I am. And I just continually am hurt by these people. And I said, let's see where your hurt really comes from. Is your hurt coming from the people, or is your hurt coming from the expectations that you have that these people will meet your needs for recognition? You see, when we really drill into that and we look at that, we can see that our distress doesn't come from that people aren't meeting our needs. It's actually coming from our expectation that they should meet our needs. And we're throwing a tantrum about it. And that's exactly what that core piece of us would do. The core piece of us that is narcissistic, egocentric, and grandiose. It feels highly entitled to have our needs met by other people. And we carry that around with us through life. And so if people don't understand that that's the core of who they are, then of course they blame other people. But if they look deeply into who they are, they can see that that they carry around this deeply embedded sense of entitlement and indulgence. They feel deeply deserving of certain of things, of recognition, of praise, of support, all this kind of stuff. Now, linked to this idea, again, referring to some of the stuff we did in earlier videos, was the existence of the golden child within us, the divine child. What that suggests is that we are gifted. There's no doubt about it. We all do have unique talents, skills, and abilities. True enough, right? None of us are the same. We all have unique differences, skills, and abilities. Now, the question, the interesting place where this conversation goes is that, well, where did you get the skill and ability? In other words, all your capacities, here's what this privilege argument says, is that because people have been endowed with certain innate skills and abilities, it's given them opportunities. Skills and abilities, position, whatever it is. And if you want to say it's skin color, if you want to say it's finances, if you want to say it's intellect, you can say all that. But the question all comes back to this place of a transpersonal spiritual approach, which says, where did you get those abilities? Where did you get those body traits? Where did, those physical abilities? Where did you get that intellectual ability? People will say, well, the opportunities that I have, I made on my own. I did it through hard work. Where did you get the ability to do that hard work? Again, where did you get where did you get your very breath? And where this conversation went in a very beautiful way, because the group was asking, how do we get out of this? And the individual was also saying, how do I get out of this? How do I break this? It's kind of like, well, if you look deeply into the truth of who you really are, you feel entitled to this. But what if you weren't entitled to it? What if the very breath that you're taking, the very body that you have in all its wonderful capacity and uniqueness, what if that was all just a privilege? What if the truth is we all have a tremendous amount of privilege, but here's the catch. It's not privilege that we've given ourselves in any way. If people are tremendously privileged, if you will, and we did not earn it, we did not deserve it, that means that the privilege that we have has been bestowed. That's really what a privilege is. Somebody is bestowed a special opportunity or an advantage or what have you. Very likely that they didn't even earn, they didn't even know about. Well, where did it come from then? So what we do know is that the privilege that you have, even taking your next breath, is a privilege bestowed. The next step that you take is a privilege bestowed. The thoughts that you're having are privileges bestowed. Any talent or ability that you have is bestowed talent and ability. You did nothing to deserve it. And I said to this individual and to the group, if you're all so privileged, if you're all so gifted, but yet you've done nothing to receive that gift, that giftedness, then that means that whoever bestowed that gift on you must love you deeply. This must just be an incredible love story. You've done absolutely nothing to deserve your giftedness and your privilege, and yet you have it. And by the very nature of who you are, you use these privileges and this giftedness to serve yourself. You hoard it, you withdraw it from other people to hurt other people. You make a mess of all these privileges. And yet you still have them. They haven't been withdrawn. Why? That must be a huge act of love from somewhere. And I was saying to this individual, if you could discipline yourself to see that the privileges that you have, you didn't give yourself. They come from somewhere else. They were bestowed on you. They were given to you benevolently from some loving source that loves you more than you could ever know. Unconditionally. Excuse me. If you could get there and you could meditate on that and you could hold that vision, you could hold that space open, you would be free. You wouldn't be looking towards your family or extended family to provide you with what you think you need. You would be already free. You would be already full. And any acts of giving you did now would be from love. You see, right now, and this individual was talking about how they're really trying hard to get the recognition and the love, etc., from their family, and they end up doing, good deeds for family, but family doesn't do anything back. And it ends up in resentment. And that's a classic case of giving to get. Giving to get. When we have contact with that deep, absolutely true, irrefutable, irrefutable connection with that love story that exists with that transcendent self, then we are generous with people from our abundance, not from our lack. If I'm giving to get, I'm giving from a place of lack. But if I'm full and if I'm free, of course I want to give to people from what I have. I'm loving because I am loved. I'm loving because I'm full of love already. My cup runneth over. That's the grand logos. That is the grand mythic logos that in this day and age, and I say this day and age, probably since the 50s and 60s, the grand logos has been under attack, being deconstructed. Now, having said that, there are a lot of different spiritual paths out there and transcendent paths, but many of them, I suggest, are feeding into the grandiosity that we have, that's embedded in us, that is trying to reinforce that we are the center of the universe, that an individual is. That's seductive, and there are plenty of people on that path, and they call it a spiritual path. But if you look at it, and this is what I was saying to the group last night, remember, that part of us that's narcissistic, egocentric, and grandiose will do anything it needs to do in order to be special, in order to be godlike. And sometimes that infantile part of ourselves shows up in a wolf in sheep's clothing. It can look like like it's engaged in a spiritual discipline or a wisdom discipline, but actually it's using that wisdom to bolster itself. So when you see somebody on a spiritual path who's taking credit for themselves, the reason I am who I am is because of what I've done. And when you see the I, me language as part of that, and a person wanting to take credit for where they are, for being enlightened or what have you, you'll know that those are the signs and symptoms of the immature ego attempting to appear spiritual, but actually it's just putting arrows in its own, in its own sheath there. So I wanted to put this down in video here real quick as a follow-up to the group. It was an awesome discussion last night. Appreciate the questions. Appreciate the questions. Now, and I remember, a little advice for folks right now, because they were saying, how do we get out of this dilemma? We talked about a couple of different, if you will, parables or quotes that were very challenging. And what they basically suggested is that we stop with the BS. We stop with the blue smoke and mirrors. We stop blowing smoke up our own butts, right? Let's get real about who we are. Grand Mthyos, narcissistic, egocentric. That's the nature of who we are. Don't ever underestimate, so said the parables, don't ever underestimate your ability to deceive yourself about who you really are. That is part and parcel of who we are. We're masters of self-deceit. That's why people show up to the group every week. We have to stand in the presence of something that can help us see things clearly and see, most importantly, ourselves. That's how we become free. The truth will set you free. That's a fact. But you can't look to yourself to know what that truth is. That feeds into the narcissistic part of ourselves. A mature person seeks out opportunities to stand in the presence of wisdom. Not its own wisdom, but something greater than itself. Remember what Einstein said. As we stand before God, we are all equally foolish. Even Einstein, not a particularly religious person, but very spiritual, knew that there was something bigger. And I really enjoy that quote. It's an equalizer. Remember, humility is the great equalizer. So Einstein saying this. You can never solve a problem in the same paradigm in which it was created. So you don't try to solve that getting your needs met from an attachment place, from this social place. You got to take another road. And it's not that you have to take another road. It's that you get to take another road. This is an amazing gift that we have as human beings. That we can go vertical. We can go up, down. We don't have to do this. We're meant for more. That's the divinity within us. That's what makes human beings special, if you will, in a very humble way, special. So as much as it is as if we're going down a road that we've always used to going, and then when there's that roadblock, we kind of feel pissed off about it, and we take a different road. And then we come to find out that was a better road to take all along. Easier, more peaceful. But this is what it's like. This is the wisdom teachings that we stand before. Shake us up. They say, hey, wake up. The road you're going down, I get it. You're used to it, etc. It's traditional. It's normal. But that's not why you came to the planet, to be normal. You want to be outstanding. So you know what? Take that side road. Be careful, though, because a lot of those are dead ends. But there's one that leads to freedom. And so that's what we do. That's what I do. That's what I love. And I hope you're the same. So look at what's going on out there in the world right now and all this discussion around marginalization and privilege and all this kind of stuff. And just ask yourself, what would happen if all of a sudden everybody just saw that their privileges were gifts, bestowed gifts that they never earned, that they don't even deserve? That would mean, by the very fact that they possess them, that they must be incredibly loved. This is not luck. This is not by chance. We're all unique by design. Because if it were just luck, chance, there'd be a bunch of us who kind of were replicas of each other, just by chance, right? Just by luck. Nah, that's a lame theory. It doesn't work out. Even by luck, even by chance, there would be replication. But there's not in any one of us. But imagine what would happen if everybody just woke up to that. Oh my God, you mean I have all these abilities and skills and gifts and privileges that I don't even deserve? Oh my gosh, there would be nothing but gratitude pouring out of us, and nothing but generosity to want to share these gifts with other people. I mean, what good would it be to have a cup that runneth over and spill onto the ground and go to waste? No, you would begin to fill other people's cups. That's what is before us. Can you imagine if people could reach that consciousness, that reality? Now, this is not new. This has been before us. This thought technology, this Grand Mythos, this has been before us for a long time. The question becomes, the more interesting question is, why would we refuse it? It was kind of like we were saying last night in the group. You know, if you had to take a detour, if your way was blocked and there was another way to go, but you just keep your foot on the brake, you just on standstill, you're going, no, you're just refusing the other direction. Why? Why would you refuse a better path? Well, because gosh darn it, I pay my taxes and I'm entitled to take this path. I've paid my dues. I've put in my time. And nobody's going to tell me different. I ask parents, you have kids like that? You have immature people in your lives who are doing that? You know that there's a better path that they could be taking, but they sink their heels in and refuse? Now, we can forgive them probably, because they're immature. Their brains aren't fully developed. That's part of individuation. You're going to go down a particular road. You're going to hit that, that wall. You're going to run into that, guardrail. And hopefully it wakes you up and you go, geez, I guess I should have taken that other path. But as grown-up leaders, as mature adults, we might want to think that through a little bit more. We've kind of got our bumps and bruises, don't we? There's really no need for more. But, as I said, there seems to be built in, as a result of, the narcissism and the grandiosity. I mean, the narcissistic, grandiose person does not like to be told that they're on the wrong path, that there's a better way. Because to say that there's a better way means that there's something wiser than they are, there's something smarter than they are, and that feels offensive. So when that person's sitting in traffic refusing to take the detour or look for another route, yeah, they feel offended. They feel offended by this blockage. When actually it's an opportunity to find a more peaceful path, a calmer path, a healing path. And that's what people were looking for in that parent group exercise. People are hurt. They want a healing path. But you're not going to find the healing at this horizontal level. If you do, it'll take years and years. Let necessity be the mother of invention. Take the other route. Reclaim the other route. That route is there, like the stubborn person in traffic. They know they could go another route. It's not that there is no other route, it's they're refusing the route. But when we take a close look at that, isn't that a sign of immaturity? That's not mature behavior. That's not wise. So part of being true to ourselves is choosing the wise path. Seeing into the opportunity. If you feel stuck, if you feel like you're hitting dead ends, but you continue to force your way through that, whatever it is in relationship and your family stuff, it's an opportunity. Let it be the mother of invention. Take another route. You might say to me, well, what other route, John? Well, yeah, come to the group. We can talk about it. But what you're going to find out is that it's a route that you already know about. You didn't really come to the group or to come to see me to find a new route. You already know what the route is. But here's the deal, that people are hanging on to something. And deeper in the psyche, what we get to see is that people are hanging on to their sense of entitlement and indulgence. People don't want to admit that they're narcissistic, egocentric, grandiose, that they're short-sighted. But it's that very admittance, if you will, that's the ticket to admission. That's how we grow. And the more we can do that, the more we can be real about ourselves, the faster we can grow. That's what the earlier quotes were talking about. If you want to move forward faster, then face more, faster. Get real. Stop the blue smoke and mirrors. Stop the sleight of hand. And get real about it. Because the truth will set you free. So I got to head out of here. Hope this was helpful. Hope this answered the question from the group as they posed it. And please keep sending me your questions. Have a good day.